Hello everybody, how's it going today? Glowplasma 231 here, back in a Weekly Shonen Jump, issue number 29 of 2025. And wow, this is a bit of a weird issue of Shonen Jump. I mean, we have a series ending this week, two series that are about to end, a brand new series, and then just some also really funny chapters. Let me say, this week's Witch Watch chapter, I'm going to go and spoil this now. It is going to be my chapter of the week. I mean, we had some really good stuff. I really like Kill Blue, Ichi the Witch. I thought Blue Box was very interesting. Elusive Samurai is like, oh, we're really heading towards all the end game here for all of that stuff. But no chapter. I was sitting in my bed reading all of these. I was a little tired earlier in the day, and just like, all right, Weekly Shonen Jump's been out for like a week and a half, and I still haven't read it. Let me just finally sit down, do all of this, actually make the video on it, and all of that sort of stuff. And I sat down, read all of these chapters. And then I got to Witch Watch and just couldn't stop laughing at how funny that chapter was. And honestly, I just want to just hop into this video a bit quicker, just talk about all of these great 13 manga series I read this week. And yeah, we're just going to go and hop into it. But before we can do that, of course, if you guys don't know how this series works, of course, I'm going to be sitting down here talking about all 13 series that I read in Weekly Shonen Jump this week. And after I go and ramble about whatever I want to ramble on about them, I know I said the words ramble and ramble on about a lot there, but once I go through and ramble about all of those various chapters and everything, I'm then going to be ranking them from what I thought was my favorite chapter of the week all the way down to my least favorite chapter and all of the other 11 places in between. And of course, with that, we have the whole idea of I'm going to pick out who my favorite character was, just who I thought had a very cool moment. And yeah, honestly, just a pretty cookie-cutter issue Jump this week. Nothing terrible, nothing great, but still some good series we need to talk about anyway. Now, of course, we have a few series missing on the roster this week. Of course, I know we'd be starting out these videos talking about Kagurabachi. Well, Takeru Hokuzono, of course, that manga of the series, it seems like he was sick, or he just needed a week off, pretty much, and Shonen Jump gave it to him. Hey, that's very awesome. After that, we, of course, talked about One Piece. Well, Oda, this wasn't his week to write One Piece, I guess. I guess he has written it for 3 weeks, the 3 past weeks, so it sort of makes sense, he takes a break every so often, and this was his break week, pretty much, right? Which also means that we are starting off this video talking about Ichi the Witch, chapter number 38. And let me say, what a satisfying chapter of Ichi the Witch this was. So it really starts off with Gokuraku, or not with Gokuraku, with Gokuraku's sister, Richiya, really just thinking about Gokuraku, like, hey, when was it that Gokuraku started looking at me with such sad eyes? And the whole thing is like, oh yeah, she is running around the town of Bakugami, looking for her brother, oh no, where's Gokuraku? Just hey, answer me, let me know you're okay. Of course, the big tapir body of the Bakugami magic, or the Joyful Stars magic, is, rampaging all around the area, and, it's really, making the ground tremble and all of that. And Richiya's oh no, the ground is shaking, and this is getting pretty bad around here, I really have to find Gokuraku and get him to safety in the palace and fast, because, we don't know what's going on out here, right? And of course, as she's sort of looking around, she eventually sees the Joyful Sorrow magic, which is sort of running around the area, right? And he's like, oh, help me, right? And she's like, oh my gosh, are there still citizens out here? Are you okay? Are you hurt? And we see that, of course, the Joyful Sorrow's magic is really happy to see Richiya. He just sort of, goes up and grabs her arm, just is oh, you did well to run to my aid, faithful princess of this country. And he's like, hey, I'm the embodiment of Bakugami. My voice, do you recognize it? And of course, Richiya does from the time that little tapir entered the town, gobbling up all of the sadness. And the Joyful Sorrow's magic just says, hey, my other half, that my more tapir body is, rampaging, going berserk. But hey, you can help me, Richiya. Give me your sorrow, just like you did when we first met. And Richiya's my sorrow, why do you want that, right? And he's hey, with it, I'll be able to quell my physical form's rage and stop its blind rampage in the same way. To save your country, just like you did 10 years ago. And of course, as all this is happening, the two challengers of the Magic's trial, of course, both Ichi and Gokuraku, start to come this way. Of course, Gokuraku still has all of the mechanical elements and stuff, falling out of his stomach, pretty much. And we see that Ichi's pretty much, helping him limp along. He's hey, Bakugami, get away from my sister. And the Joyful Sorrow's magic is oh no, he still has his sanity. And we even see that Richiya's wait, no, is that, Gokuraku? And the Joyful Sorrow magic really tries to turn Richiya on Gokuraku, being like, yes, look at him! That's the pitiful remnant of what was once your brother, like he gave up his body, his humanity, in this futile quest for revenge. This country has birthed a monster! And we see that Richiya's not really taking so well to this, right? As she just really realizes all of the pain that she's put Gokuraku through and in what he's pretty much been becoming here, right? And the whole thing is like, the Joyful Star is like, hey, but doesn't it bring you pain? Give that sadness to me and we can save this country, right? And he even says like, hey Richiya, I'll make this pain go away. Just like when your mother died. And we see as all this is happening, like the Joyful Star is like, hey, do it. Give your sorrow to me, Richiya. Like, you can do it. I believe in you. And we see the Gokuraku in the background, like getting ready to do our synchro rate punch, like pulling back his fist. But then we just see that Richiya shoves the Joyful Sorrow magic away. And Shiryu just says like, hey Lord Bakugami, like I'm really sorry, but I can't hug you. Not ever again. As we just get some narration from her perspective, is like, hey, for years now, I felt like I've had this really strange hole in my chest. A hole where I used to have something important. And at the same time, my brother started looking at me with really, really lonely eyes. I was incredibly worried. He looked so sad and I just wanted to help him. But I couldn't. I just didn't know how. I asked anybody I could for advice and they all told me the same thing. To have Lord Bakugami take his sorrow away. But I knew I couldn't do that either. For some reason, it felt like it was something I should never do. That if I ever let him go, I'd lose everything for good. And in the present, Richiya's like just saying all of this to Bakugami, being like, hey, that thought was the last thread of connection me and my brother have. And I've held on to it this entire time. She's like, I'm sorry, but it's something that I simply just can't let go. Not even for you, Lord Bakugami. My concern for my brother is all mine, and I won't give it up. Not for you or for anyone, because I am his sister. And of course, Bakugami, this is not what he wants to hear. He wants that joyful sorrow. He wants all of that to pretty much continue the trial between all of them. He's like, no, what? Like, don't give me that sappy drivel witch. Like, hug me, cling to me, desperate, like, do, like, please, pretty much, right? And he's even, like, calls her a frail, weak, insignificant human. And he just says all this, like, hey, bow to me already. I am your god. And as he's saying all of this, all of a sudden, he starts to shiver a little bit. As we see that Gokuraku has appeared behind him, pulling out a synchro rate punch at 100%. As we see that he's just like, hey, our country needs no gods, and hey, grit your teeth, you bastard, because this is gonna hurt. And he just comes down, and the final 2 pages of this chapter are a 2-page spread where we just see Gokuraku punching the Bakugami in the face. And it's a completely awesome panel and just an awesome chapter of Ichi the Witch. And it seems like this arc is almost over, and I honestly just like couldn't be happier. This was an amazing chapter. Kill Blue is up next. So again, this is Kill Blue number 105. And then we got a pretty cool color page to start off this chapter. This chapter is also titled Suburo Ichijo, because that's all it is pretty much about. And our little bit of a color page is we just see Ogami holding a gun, and of course Suburo holding a gun also, right? Well, really the first part of this chapter is all about, like, hey, we see that Nadeshiko and Yamaoka, of course, both of them got out for their respective teams, and now they're sort of walking back, when this just leaves Norin, Ogami, Suburo, and Iori in the match left, pretty much. So there's 4 combatants. So we see that Norin's like, hey, I probably should switch out, but I need to be able to help out Ogami, because I also sort of know Ogami's secret. And we see that as she's sort of running around, she runs into Iori on a different part of the school, right? And of course, Iori was going over to help out Subaru, so it seems like we're going to have Norin and Iori facing off, of course, while we have Subaru and Ogami also facing off at the same time, right? And we see as all this happening, like, Ogami's still using that little bit of, like, a rice bowl to, like, make the bullets curve back at Subaru. And you see, like, oh crap, this isn't good. Like, he has pushed me very, very far away from Norin. He's like, hey, I can't risk accidentally shooting him myself or he'll find out that I'm a hitman. But, like, how else am I supposed to have Norin finish him off now for me, pretty much, right? And we see as all of this is pretty much happening, we see that there's a security camera in the room, and we see that Subaru pretty much like waves up his hand at the security camera, right? And we see that Juragu, of course, one of the other student council members, like, oh crap, sorry, that's a signal from the president, and I gotta step away for him a minute, right? As we just see that Pino and the other student council members is like, what do you mean, right? As we see, of course, all the broadcasting club kids who are, like, relaying everything about this going on, they're like, hey, why'd the feed cut out all of a sudden, right? As we see, this just leaves the match between Subaru and Ogami unsupervised. So we see this is what Subaru wanted. He just explains, like, hey, Ogami, you can fight me for real now. Like, as soon as I heard that all the spectators would be watching, I made agreements with Juraku. If me and you got into a 101, he would cut the cameras off pretty much, right? And Subaru also says, like, hey, forgive me for saying this, Mr. Ogami, but I no longer suspect you of secretly being a hitman. At this point, I'm convinced of it, right? And Ogami's like, what? How could you have ever thought of that, pretty much, right? And we see that he's just like, hey, no proof, it's just my intuition, right? And Ogami has a bit of a conversation with Nekoda as they're like, hey, what are you going to do now, right? But none of that conversation really matters. The big part of this chapter is what's coming up next. So Subaru's like, hey, but right now, none of that's important. If it's my cup that you're concerned with, that isn't even my primary issue, pretty much, right? But in this battle, I know that you're holding out against me, and the most important factor when choosing a successor is recognizing that. I will never exchange cups with someone who conceals their true strength. Worse still, I don't want to spoil what's been quite an entertaining match, so please, show me the true you. And Ogami's like, alright then, if that's the side of time battle you want, then I sort of, like, can't say no to you. So we see that he just, like, reaches into his back pocket, grabs out a handgun, just like, hey, in a situation like this, it's important to hash out our issues one at a time. So for now, I'm going to win this game and keep Norid in the Home Ec Club. The issue of becoming your successor can wait a little bit, right? And we see this is what Subaru wanted at the end of the day, right? And we just see they start to fight a little bit. All of their guns are going back and forth, banging all around, right? And as they're sort of going through and fighting, we see that Yamaoka speaks up to Nadeshiko as they're pretty much walking out of the school being that they've both been eliminated. And she's like, hey, you seemed pretty upset at the time, but, like, you're actually pretty chill about the way that things ended up happening around here, right? And she's like, hey, I imagine that both of our captains are pretty much settling this as we speak, right? And pretty much we just see that Yamaoka pretty much gets to the whole point of, like, hey, Ogami's strong when it comes to fighting with airsoft guns, right? And Nadeshiko's like, well, that doesn't really matter, because on the first try, Subaru is terrible at everything. But in the end, he always wins. The fact is that President Subaru Ichijo is the strongest member of the student council. As we cut back over to where Ogami and Subaru are, like, fighting their guns back and forth, doing all that stuff. And Ogami's like, yeah, I think I finally get what's up with Subaru. Like, he's definitely different than he was in the first time we fought. Like, he's crazy. Like, he is super strong. But yet, at his core, Subaru is just completely average. There's no hint of, like, an unusual strength or agility in his movements, and, like, his skill beforehand was, like, a bit better than it is now, pretty much, right? But the same way, he is raised up to a level higher than anything we have ever seen. Ogami's like, how much has this training has this guy done? Like, I'm honestly terrified. Like, I've spent my whole life with guns, but somehow this guy, in a few days, is up on my level. And Subaru's like, hey, I'm really glad that you sort of now realize what sort of person I am. And this challenge didn't need to be about airsoft guns. You could have picked anything, Ogami, and the results would have been the same. And Ogami's like, so what you're telling me is, like, you strive to become, like, a champion at everything or something like that? Like, I met some really competitive people, but you personally take the cake, right? And Subaru just explains, like, hey, that may be part of it, but it isn't entirely accurate. I mostly do this because it feels good. And Subaru explains that whenever he was younger, he would always get bullied he was always a target of one particular bully. And this bully was much stronger than Subaru ever was, right? And Subaru's like, hey, because of that, I tried to study martial arts to pretty much get back at this bully. And I lost time and time again. Like, I trained more, but I still lost, and it didn't really matter. But one day, I finally beat him, and it was like the greatest feeling I've ever had. And that feeling wasn't about all the payback that he'd done to me and needing to get him back. It was just something almost deeper. That feeling was shouting out to me in no uncertain terms to set a goal, work hard, and achieve it. I endlessly pursued that. The rush it gave me, and before I knew it, I chased it all the way to becoming the student council president. Whether I have talent for something is completely irrelevant. In fact, the harder and more painful it is to achieve my objective, the better it feels in the end. Once I got a taste of that feeling, I was hooked. There's no better feeling in the world than the moment when all of that hard work pays off. And we get a really, really awesome single page spread where we just see Subaru Ichijo looking towards the camera, and it's just a really, really cool panel we get here, right? But the last little bit of this chapter is Nadeshiko pretty much explaining, like, hey, he's really good, and the reason he's able to get so good at things is he pretty much, like, takes the level of hard work to a little bit of a different thing. And she explains that Subaru is something called a short sleeper, where it's a person who can sleep very few hours a day, but also, like, get on perfectly fine with very little sleep. And she explains, like, hey, I've known him since we were kids, and I have never seen him sleep. Okay, that's a little bit of a weird one there. And Yamaoka's like, what are you talking about, right? And of course, this leads us back to the whole idea that Subaru and Ogami are currently on the same level. Ogami may be a good hitman, but he's in a child's body, and Subaru is currently at the top of his game. Who is going to win this match? Either way, at the end of the day, this was a really fun chapter of Kill Blue. I love really seeing everything about Subaru and just, like, the character he is, and honestly, he's getting built up to where he's going to be a really fun rival to sort of see in all of these matches going forward, because I presume they're going to be doing more, like, challenges back and forth between them, and I just thought Kill Blue was a really good chapter this week. Like, it's so funny, Kill Blue is, like, some of the lowest lows, but then some of the, like, highest highs never gets to it, right? I really think I need to go back and read Tatoshi Furumaki's other series, which is Kuroko no Basket, and really just see if that helps me enjoy this series more, because I do enjoy it. It's just, like, a few weird things here and there that sort of just, like, damper all of the full enjoyment, but either way, I did like this chapter of Kill Blue. Well, next chapter is Sidcraft Love is a Mystery, chapter number 28, and also the final chapter of this series. Oh no, Sidcraft has ended, how sad, right? But this is a little bit of a weird chapter. It's like, the first page is, we just see that Toby is sitting in a prison cell, and he sees his two parents who have been in prison for a long time. Oh boy, look at that, right? And then we just cut outside to where we see that both Sid and Sofue are, like, sitting in a flower field, just like, oh yeah, so did you hear that Toby finally fessed up to all of his crimes? And like, wow, he did. But this place where we all spent time together as kids hasn't changed, as we see they're sitting in a flower field that, presumably, they spent time in as kids pretty much, right? And Sofue's like, hey, true, it's still the same, just like it was back then. And they sort of look over to the side where they see the three of them all running, as children, all running through the flower field having fun, right? And as all this is happening, we see that Sofue has a romance novel in her hand, of course, one of the ones that Sid really likes, and he's like, oh, wait a second, like, that's the latest volume of that romance series that Elio writes, pretty much, right? And we just see they're talking all back and forth, and really just going back and forth, like, oh, hey, look at this, oh, hey, look at that. And eventually the whole idea is like, hey, so he's like, I really like the inspector who's on the cover, who's definitely not like a portrayal of her. I mean, it even looks the same. I mean, of course, it's drawn by the same guy, but the whole idea there is like, oh, yes, it's definitely like there's a portrayal easily showing there, right? And Sofue just says, like, hey, thank you for keeping your promise from back then and still becoming a great detective. Like, thank you, Sai. And we see that they pretty much talking about all of this. And Sid eventually says, like, hey, I've had this dream for the longest time, and I'm making this right here my final case. And I'm going to be retiring as a detective, pretty much, right? And he pretty much explains the whole crux of this series, which was like, hey, on the day I found someone to love from the bottom of my heart, I was going to quit being a detective and live that peaceful life with someone. He's like, hey, and that is why he's like, Sofue, what I'm saying is, and they start to lead in for a kiss, and oh no, Evio Evelyn appears behind him riding on a horse, right? And she pretty much kidnaps Sid and going around like, hey, we still got all of our adventures to go on, don't you forget? Sort of running around. We see that Lulu, who I guess has just come out to everybody that she was the Phantom Thief the entire time, pretty much like ties up Sidcraft and like, nope, I'm taking him with me. We see that Metallica does the same exact thing, like, oh yep, I got you, I'm gonna take care of you with all my robots, pretty much. And pretty much all the other characters in the series just sort of appear and are like, hey, no, Sid, we're going to be around you too, like, we want to talk about the romance novel and all that various stuff. And all of them are sort of doing all of that, sort of this thing to where, like, Sid's around everybody who supported him this entire time, right? And Sid's like, hey, I made up my mind. but there's one person in particular I've fallen for. And this really starts to hit home for both Elio and Lulu, who both pretty much realize it's not them, as it's the whole idea of Sid's like, hey, and indeed that person is among you. And because of all of this, he starts to almost faint and pass out as a book hits his head, and he pretty much like drops on the ground, and he points towards the cover of the book, and he points towards the character who was sort of representing Sofleo in it, right? And we see that pretty much like, oh wow, is this the Master's dying message pretty much? And it's this whole idea that where both Elio is like, oh man, I'm so happy, like, I'm the one who wrote the book, so it has to be me. And Lulu's like, oh yeah, I introduced you to that book. We bonded over it, so it has to be me. Of course, both knowing that it's probably not them. As Sofleo is like, hey, what was your dream, Sid? And pretty much doing all that various stuff, right? As the whole idea is the three of them are sort of just all sitting together, and Sofleo's like, hey, well, if it's something you want, Sid, then I think the four of us living together wouldn't be such a bad idea. And Sid's like, no, that's a terrible idea. Like, I don't know what you're thinking about, right? As we pretty much see that all of a sudden, some police constables sort of run by and like, oh no, there's a case in the next town over. And almost, Sid, like, gets up and starts, his body just moves before he can really think about it. He's like, oh, wait a second, like, I told I was going to give all of this up, like, why is my body moving like this? As it's the whole idea of, like, hey, within every mystery story, there always appear a case, wherever it may be, gallantly saving enigmas and tracking down culprits. And in other words, great detectives and cases are destined to attract each other. As it's the whole idea of like, hey, maybe Sidcraft's final case will take a little bit longer to come to fruition. And that's where we end this chapter of Sidcraft, Love is a Mystery, the final chapter of the series. And, I mean, it does a fine job wrapping up the entire story. Of course, I would have really liked to see more of this series, because I did find it enjoyable, and Taishi Tsutsui, I expect we'll see him back again in Jump at some point, meaning he had one really successful series, one that got the 4 volumes. I mean, that's really nothing to scoff at. Granted, it seemed like he had a little bit of the editor's help at the end of the day, but really is what it is there. But Sidcraft, Love is a Mystery, final chapter, wasn't terrible, but it's one of those things where I would just like to see more as time was going on. Well, next up is Order of the Flame, Chapter 6. As pretty much this chapter is like, okay, we are finally done with our training arc, and we are hopping into something bigger, right? As we see, like, yeah, Oder's been pretty much mastering the use of heroic vigor. He's pretty much able to chop down a tree with a small, measly sword now. He's able to pretty much do that thing that Eto Pirko did a few chapters ago, like, putting the middle small portion like that, very, like, it even, like, I'm touching it right now, it's like, yeah, I don't think I could stand on, like, a small dagger of that. We see the Orders being able to do that with, like, the small, weak part of his foot, and, like, hey, he is becoming a warrior, pretty much, right? And 610 pretty much says, like, hey, guys, by the decree of, like, from the king, pretty much, he wants us to pretty much all meet up at this area, because I'm a hero, and I still sort of have these jobs. And he's like, hey, well, I've got a few stops I need to make before then, so I'm not going to be able to travel with both Order and Eto Pirko. So in order to reach Ice Kingdom, you need to pass through Anvil Wall in Dwarf Valley, pretty much, right? And we just sort of get a little bit of a map, like, hey, we're currently here at Mead Mountain, and we need to sort of wiggle around to all of these various areas, right? And Eto Pirko and Order sort of have a little bit of a conversation as they're pretty much making their way there about, like, hey, don't be so formal with me. We sort of just see all of their various adventure things going on as they're sort of moving around. And as they're sort of getting closer to a village, they're like, oh wow, this village is almost like covered in mist. And as they're sort of like going around, they start to hear some rustle in some vines around them, and like, oh, Order's like, hey, it may just be like a rabbit or a squirrel. Actually, it's too small. It may just be like a bear or something, right? And Eto Pirko's like, oh wow, it's like, you have some decent tracking knowledge. Like, I do like that pretty much, right? But as we see they're pretty much arriving, we see that one of these townsfolk is like, hey, don't go near the village, right? As he explains, like, hey, the Ice Kingdom actually took over our village not too long ago. They actually just finished conquering Dwarf Valley as well, and they said they're going to build a supply base here, right? And the whole idea is like, yeah, this makes perfect sense for just, like, general war stuff, pretty much, right? And the whole idea is like, hey, they're pretty much holding us all up in one building, and the reason I'm out here is I'm not running away or anything, but they pretty much told me to rob the next village over to get stuff for them, right? And if I don't go and do this, then, well, they're going to kill me and all of the other people in the village, and none of us want that, right? It's like, hey, so you two just go to your way, don't mind me, I know what I'm doing is wrong, but it's really, I can't help myself. And, of course, both Order and Eto Pirko are just like, we can't do that. We're going to the village. Like, we have time we need to meet up with Sixten and all that, so we're pretty much going to go through and liberate this village, right? And this guy's like, no, but, like, you can't do that. Like, who are you two to even try? And both Order and Erdepeak are like, no, we're simply warriors, right? As we cut over to this village, where we see the Ice Kingdom Western Front Army Squad captain is a guy by the name of Adolf of the Icebone Casket. The Icebone Casket is such a cool name. I even do like his design. It's sort of like this big buffer guy with sort of like these big long elf ears and like these horns coming out of him. But most notably, we see that both his feet and sort of one of his arms sort of has like these bones frozen inside of the ice to make it stronger, and there's sort of like these like big like battle armaments sort of around his arms. And we even see that he's got these like metallic icy wings that sort of have like bones and skeletons that make up the contents to make him stronger. I do really like that general idea, right? And we see that this guy isn't a good guy. He's pretty much like stealing some medicine from this guy dad. He's like, hey, that medicine's for my child, like he's terrible sick, like he has to take it every day or he's going to die. And we see this guy's like, hey, you think I care, pretty much, right? And he's like, hey, how about this? You two need to lick my icy boot, pretty much. And like, hey, if your tongue gets stuck on it and rips off, it's not my problem. We see that he's just a really bad person. It's this whole idea of he knows you're about to lick it, gets her tongue stuck, and another one of these ice demon guys is going to come from behind and slice her neck off like that. And oh no, that's not very good. But of course, we have a few heroes to come in and save the day. We see that Ertopirko uses some ability that's mainly focused in her legs, and it almost sort of looks like these massive ice skate looking things that she uses to come through and slice a guy's neck off. And of course, Order comes through with a little bit of an axe that comes through and slices off this guy's leg here. And he's like, look at that. Like, hey, Thilja, let's go and do some fighting, pretty much. And that's where we end off this chapter of Order of the Flame. Definitely wasn't one of my favorite chapters of this series, but I'll just be interested to see where it goes from here. But, like, really not too much to say about it. Order of the Flame was fine, right? Now, we have the new series that started on Weekly Shonen Jump this week. Of course, it got the magazine cover in the series of Harukaze Mound, chapter number 1. Now, of course, this is it's like a 55-page chapter, and simply put, this is a baseball manga. It really seems like Shonen Jump wants to get a good sports manga into magazine. I mean, it's been a while. Ever since Haikyuu ended, they tried with Nine Dragons Ball Parade. They've tried with, oh gosh, what other series have they had? I mean, we've had a Blue Box, but it's not really a sports series. It is a romance sports series. Like, the sports is there, but it's mainly a romance series. And the whole idea is like, yeah, Shonen Jump has not had a big sports series. We see how Embers is going. I enjoyed Embers. We're going to be talking about its, 19th chapter next. But of course, by this point, we know it's already ended. So it's like, yeah, that's not so great. But this is a baseball manga mainly focusing on two brothers, Akoze Kayumi and Nagiharu Kazumi. Of course, it's like, hey, look, Nagiharu, Haru, and Kaze, Harukaze Mound. Wow, a mound is a baseball term. I understand this name. And it was honestly really funny. Whenever I first saw this chapter, I flipped to the second page, which is like, oh yeah, Harukaze Mound. I said, oh, opposite twins. I'm like, okay, one of them's going to be named Haru, and the other one is Kaze. I get this. And hey, I was right. But really, the whole idea is like, hey, the older brother, Nagiharu, is really bad at pitching, right? Even though the younger brother, what was his name? Yeah, Aokaze, he is very good at pitching, pretty much, right? And it's this whole idea of, like, even though they're the same age, the same height, all of that various stuff, they're just slightly different enough. Of course, one of the brothers is left-handed, that's Nagiharu, which makes his pitching style different from his brother Akoze, even though they sort of try to do the exact same thing, pretty much, right? And the whole idea is they want to go to this sports school called Hoijutsu for high school, and pretty much that's one of their big dreams, pretty much, right? Even though it doesn't seem great because Nagiharu is just not that good at sports, right? Eventually we get introduced to another guy named Ibuki Hayama. Yeah, Hayama. And we see that he's also 30-year middle school, and 3 years ago he led the under-12 national team to victory, right? Even though he's a really super short guy, pretty much, right? And they're like, oh yeah, he's not even 160 centimeters, like, he's a small guy. And of course, Ibuki doesn't like being called this, right? But the whole idea is he's like, hey, Akoze, I want you to pretty much show me that you've been holding back this entire time because you seem really powerful, right? And the whole idea is, yeah, whenever he tries, he's really powerful, but he's holding back for Nagiharu's sake, pretty much, right? And it's this whole idea that where eventually he's like, this isn't good, and the two brothers seem to have a little bit of a rift drawn between them because Aokaze really wants them to both go to this school, but Nagiharu's like, no, you're just better than me, and I don't know if I can catch up. That's the whole idea we get there, right? Eventually Nagiharu goes up to Ibuki to pretty much be like, hey man, I want to try to be on the same level as my brother, can you help me? And he ends up helping him out pretty much, right? And it's this whole idea, as we'll get to later, that Aokaze is better throwing underhand, being that he's left-handed. He can sort of shift all his momentum over to the side, and not like somebody with right hand can, because of course your heart, lungs, and there's more weight on that side of your body, where you can just throw farther, pretty much. It's in baseball terminology, it makes sense whenever it's explained in the manga, but I'm not really a baseball guy, so I don't fully understand it and I honestly don't know if this is something that's very common in the baseball world, pretty much, right? But as all of this is going on, it's the last official game of the year, pretty much, and this is the game that really matters if these two are going to be getting into this dream school they want to go to. And eventually, Akoze is doing really good, but it seems like he's getting worn out, so Nagiharu's like, hey, coach, put me in, pretty much, and we see that he pretty much goes out and does that. And whenever he does, he throws a really nasty, really good underhand fastball, or I don't really know what it's called. He throws it very well underhanded. It's a pitching style none of the other kids on his team have ever seen before, right? And the whole idea is, like, this is where we get the explanation that Ibuki gave of, like, hey, the whole balance of the body and all of that, like, it's just something to where it makes sense in the series. If you want to know everything that gets explained here, go read the chapter yourself, you know? But sort of as all of this happens, we see he's like, okay, this is how I'm going to do it. And he's like, hey, all the cogs that are moving separately are now starting to sync up here in the moment, right? And Aokaze is like, hey, Nagiharu, he always catches up, even if he stumbles first. Like, he never gives up until he draws even with me, pretty much, right? And eventually he's like, hey, I'm going to do this, and Nagiharu pretty much throws the game, gets the batter out, and it's really awesome. And the two brothers, Aokaze and Nagiharu, sort of have a little bit of a nice, like, hey man, that was really good, and they seem like they're back in good relations, right? And we then cut to a little while later, whenever the whole idea is like, hey, it seems like they both go to the Hojutsu school that they wanted to, right? But as all this is happening, we see Ibuki comes up and she's like, hey, Nagiharu, instead of going to Hojutsu, how about the two of us form a battery? And he's like, what do you mean by all this, right? And Ibuki just explains, like, hey, there's another high school called Hinakazura High School, and it's pretty much starting up a baseball team next year, and I want you to pretty much be a part of it, right? And he pretty much explains, like, hey, whenever you look at, like, normal teams, it's all, like, the big, strong guys who make sense to be really good at the sport, and some would call that the right way to play. But if that's the case, then me and you aren't doing it right. Like, if you are doing this sort of a regular southpaw type of, like, throwing, and I'm just a really short guy, pretty much, and hey, conformity is boring, though, and baseball should be all about all the different kinds of players out there, so I want to pretty much have a big team of outsiders all join together, and we can win at the end of the day. It's like, hey, doesn't that sound fun? And it's this whole big idea of Nagiharu, like, okay, do I actually want to do that? And that's where we end off this first chapter of Harukaze Mound. And I'm decently interested in this. I've never been a baseball guy for sure, but I'll definitely be interested to see where this is going long term. And yeah, I definitely think I'm down for the ride on this one. If the next two chapters aren't that entertaining, I guess not, but for this initial chapter, I'll be interested to see where it goes next. But I did decently like the first chapter of Harukaze Mound. Well, next up is Ember's chapter number 19. Of course, we know that chapter number 20 is the final chapter of this series right here. And this is a very interesting chapter because it really just focuses on the view of Yuzen Nerima the entire time. It's this whole idea of Nerima being like, hey, how is this guy better than me? Like, how is he, like, making me forget everything I know about soccer? It's this whole idea is he's like, okay, then, okay, I need to get this ball somewhere. Like, he's throwing it around pretty much. One of his teammates like, hey, Nerima, over here, like, there's a clear passing lane you can make, right? And Nerima's like, hey, like, it's so obvious. Like, why didn't I make it before? Like, how did I overlook this? And he kicks the ball over that way. But Haitani just gets to the ball and sort of diverts it off his path pretty much, right? And Nerima's like, wait a second, was that passing lane even there? Like, even was it? Like, what if I lose? Like, today, like, I have to stop this guy in Haitani, right? And we see, like, the entire crowd who's watching this soccer match is, like, shivering. They're like, oh my gosh, what is this? And we even see a few members of the, like, General Kurobayashi team, or no, the oh, what's this school called that our heroes go to? Kosei. We see a few guys on a Kosei team, like, get these goosebumps and, like, man, is it just me? Like, or is, like, he just absolutely crazy, right? And, of course, it's this whole idea where Nerima doesn't think he can see the next move. Of course, that whole idea of, like, his eyes have been gouged out here in the moment. And it's this whole idea where Oshimi-sensei just says, like, hey, Protector is a bit of, like, a too much of a standard word to call Haitani. Like, if anything, he's stealing your treasures, your goals, stealing your small star players. Like, all that he leaves in his wake is smoldering ruin. He is no guardian. He is a plunder. And we see this really cool image of Yuzu and Nerima sort of looking up at this massive plundering wolf in front of him. It's a really cool visual, right? But pretty much we see that Nerima doesn't like this at all, of course. Like, it's like his eyes are all gouged out, and it's this big-eyed thing to, like, hey, this doesn't matter. I'll win. If I win, my eyes will come back to me. And I like how he's just yelling this out loud, and Haitani's like, what is this guy going on about, right? But the whole idea is he's like, hey, today I have to get rid of this monster. He goes to make a kick. Haitani gets in there first, right? He kicks the ball over to Takami. Takami gets on it, but there's some Kurobayashi players on him. He manages to make it through at the end of the day. And Irma's like, okay, if I can't mess with Haitani, I'll mess with Takami instead. Like, I'll catch this baby bird in his hands, right? We even see that visual being made. As it just looks like Takami's like, hey, it doesn't look like they're all in the path, like I don't have a good passing lane, then I'll make one. And he goes and kicks the ball over, but oh no, it hits the side rail of the goalpost pretty much, right? As it's this whole idea where Nerima's like, this doesn't matter, today will be like any other day. In the end, I always win. But of course, Haitani got to the ball first, running towards the goal, hops up in the air, and gets ready and hits the ball with his forehead into the goal. As we get some final narration from Nerima's perspective, like, hey, how did I even lose my eyes? He didn't do it. I thought that I knew that answer. The first time I had glimpses before the game started. They got clear when the whistle blew. I saw it coming, and did I run for it? My straight road veered ever so slightly, putting me ever so slightly in a different place. Today, I lose. As of course, Kosei has 3 points in this match and Kurobayashi has 2. And the very end of the chapter is Nerima just being like, well, damn. And that's where we end off this chapter of Embers. I really like this one. It's one of those things where it's like, even though this series is ending next week, this was just a really cool end to this game, and I can't wait to see sort of like I said, it's going to be one chapter. This is mainly going to be probably like one of these endings of like, hey, and we did many great other soccer things along the way, but I like Nerima's character that got built up. I liked how he got taken down a peg at the end of the day, and yeah, good chapter of Embers. I really did like it. Star of Beethoven, chapter number 18 is up next. Of course, we know the series ends in 2 more chapters. Would you believe that, right? So this is the third to last chapter. It's called The Tempest of Claude Sakami. We see that Claude Sakami plays Beethoven's Tempest, right? There's a lot of piano stuff going in here, like, oh man, it was written whenever, like, the whole idea of Shakespeare Tempest play and, like, the ups and downs of, like, the flowing water and river and all of that. It was completely fine, right? But the whole idea is Yasuo's listening to this in the background, like, damn, like, how am I going to beat what Claude just played, pretty much, right? And we see the Cahoan comes up and just says, like, hey, are you, like, seriously thinking like this? Like, you sure do love to worry, pretty much, right? And the whole idea is Cahoan makes Yasuo feel a lot better about this, and Yasuo has a good laugh and eventually gets up and gets ready to go play the piano. He's like, hey, I'm gonna go play the piano pretty good, Oka. Oh, look at that, he called her by her first name. Would you believe that, right? But the whole idea is he is heading out there, and he sort of gets ready to play, and everybody's like, oh man, I've been really waiting for this, right? And Yasuo just thinks like, hey, I often wonder why people play the piano. Sure, it feels good to simply do it. The cheers, all of the applause, the beat of your heart, and the sound of your breath. All of that fades away into the distance. Since ancient times, people have made music. Well, I might not entirely understand it yet, master. But maybe the whole point is moments like these. As we see that he sits down by the piano and starts to play, as it almost seems like he vanishes into the vast world of outer space, as we just see the moon shining its light on Yasuo from behind. As of course we understand that Yasuo is getting ready to play Ludwig van Beethoven's Piano Sonata number 14, opus number 27, number 2, Moonlight. And that's when he's like, alright then, let's play. And I really love this final image where we just see So drawn with white hair, and we just get the whole idea of like, oh yeah, he's getting ready to play the Moonlight Sonata, or just Moonlight. I don't really know the whole idea, but it's pretty cool. I like seeing where this is going. I didn't mention earlier that we sort of learned Claude's whole mentality for why he doesn't like people, and it's pretty much just like, hey, everybody who plays the piano is normally rich, and I wasn't rich, so I don't want all of the rich people to be better than me, pretty much. A little bit of an interesting thing there, but I do like the end of this chapter, and I really do just like seeing how this has become Ichiro's story at the end of the day. And yeah, I thought this was a fine chapter to start with Beethoven. Not one of the best ones we've had, but definitely I didn't sit down and be like, oh yeah, that was terrible either, right? Human chapter number 46 is up next, and this is just like strictly put a Hamari chapter. Of course, the whole idea is we're sort of sandwiched in between this weird time where Iamori just did the talent show or the fashion show, whatever it was called, with Kana, and of course he's got the concert to go watch Kanai in later. So of course he's going to hang out with one of the other girls, who is of course none other than Hamari. And pretty much we see that they're sort of doing all of this various stuff, walking around, doing all that stamp rally and all of that, our various stuff, right? Eventually, they're just hanging out with each other. They make it over to an escape room that Sumire is pretty much doing, where they get handcuffed together and they have to solve a bunch of these things. And Sumire's like, oh my gosh, your hands are so close together. Would you believe that? And at the end of the day, they get all the stamp rally stuff done, have some good little food to be doing all of this, right? And the whole idea of building up through this chapter is Iamori's like, hey, is Hamari like looking at me differently than she has this whole time? Yes, he is. Yes, she is, Iamori. You just are not realizing a thing. And this is sort of moving all the way through this chapter. It's more of this stuff to where it's like, okay, then, just really getting to Hamari's mind, understanding how she's thinking about all of this. And the end of the chapter is where she's sort of like, hey, I just had a lot of fun today because I realized what it was like to be a regular girl and just to go on a date here on a school festival, pretty much. So it's sort of a little bit of an exciting thing, right? And Iamori's like, hey, like, is that what you were thinking about this entire time, right? And she's like, hey, today just felt special to me. Like, so was it special to you too also? And Iamori's like, yeah, I mean, to just be a regular guy around a famous girl like you, yeah, it's a little bit of an interesting thing at the end of the day, and it was a fun time, you know? And we see that she sort of likes a little bit of stuff like that, but eventually, Iamori just gets ready to go. He's like, hey, well, Kanai's concert is about to come up, and I promised her I'd be there, and like, are you coming with me? And she's like, no, I was gonna go with some other girls in our class, right? And as Iamori is leaving, Hamari just has this thing of like, hey, he always says that nice stuff to me, and then runs off to Hanoka. And then I'm left here to sulk all by myself. Like, if I make it obvious that I like him, what would happen to us, right? As the whole end of the chapter is Kanai is getting ready to go on the stage. Would you look at that? This wasn't a terrible chapter for Hima. I did definitely enjoy it at the end of the day, but it was one of those things where it wasn't my favorite chapter that we've ever gotten either, but for a 46 chapter, it wasn't terrible at the end of the day, right? Well, to move to another chapter, a 48th chapter, we got Ultimate Ecstasy Kyoshi to talk about, and this chapter we see like, oh man, Yuta versus Mukurojima versus Sasaki, or more Sasaki versus the other two I just named, pretty much, right? As we get this really interesting visual to open up the chapter where Yuta pretty much like takes off his shirt and reveals that he's got like this demonic keyhole in his chest. Mukurojima just like goes and pulls out like a bone key, sticks it in there, and we see that Yuta just sprouts like these big, massive devil wings, and he sort of like gets like this powered up form all of a sudden. He's like, man, this feels incredible. And we see that Sasaki calls this the Wicked Gate technique, right? As we see, he's like, damn you, Mukurojima, like, you're the one who pretty much let Yuta be able to go through and do all of this, right? He's like, hey, Yuta, you idiot, when I bring you back, there are going to be some major consequences, right? And we see that Yuta is like, hey, I don't care, and pretty much sticks out his finger, like, in a finger gun, and just fires off a massive, like, bullet out of it, pretty much, right? And we see that Sasaki goes through, rolls some dice, and ended up rolling a 6, and he got the Hexecution Cleaver, pretty much, right? I love that pun of, like, yes, it's a Execution Cleaver. I thought it was pretty fun, right? But as all of this is going on, Mukurojima ties him up, Sasaki uses his abilities, and, like, just deals some damage to all of them, pretty much, and, like, starts to just fight a little bit, right? And we pretty much learned that Sasaki's power has a time limit. He can re-roll every 3 minutes. And we see that timer is about to happen again, right? As we see that Sasaki's like, hey, it's almost been 3 minutes, so this time we'll settle it with the next roll that I get, right? And Yuta explains, like, hey, are you thinking you're going to manage to get a 4, 5, 6 instant wind blade again? Like, hey, that's a 3% chance with your 3 dice. Like, there's no way that you're that lucky. And I love as Sasaki's like, hey, Yuta, you used to be my partner, so, like, you should know all the better. I'm a gambler. The odds don't matter. I only believe in fate. As we see that he gets ready, he rolls a dice, and he gets a 1, 2, 4 instant loss, where he sees his preset power zeroes out here in this instant, right? Oh no, this isn't good for Sasaki, right? And we see the high stakes. It's like, hey, are you kidding me? Like, all that big talk and you just end up doing that. Like, are you serious, right? And it's this whole idea where you just like, hey, well, looks like I'm gonna kill you now. But of course Sasaki's like, hey, don't be stupid. I'm still plenty powerful. So he comes through and just punches Yuta in the face. It's honestly really, really satisfying. It's this whole idea where, oh no, Mukurojima's also attacking him. And somehow Sasaki is just surviving until the very end of the day, where we see that those 3 minutes are up, and it's the once-in-a-lifetime chance, then hey, they couldn't capitalize on it. He is still completely fine, as he takes the dice again, rolls them once more, and gets 4 triples, or he gets 4s in the triples sort of thing. He rolls 3 4s, that's the whole idea, right? As we see, because of this, he gets the Wicked Tripoon Naginata. As he grabs it out, does some slashes around with it, and just decimates both Yuta and Mukurojima here in the moment, right? As we see, he's like, hey Yuta, it's over, come home to us. The sister wouldn't have wanted this either. Oh no, are we getting some backstory next time? Honestly, I like this chapter. I really like seeing how Sasaki went through in battle. The whole idea of, oh no, even though he pretty much got the instant loss, his preset power zeroes out, he's still a cross paladin. He is a strong guy at the end of the day, by no mistake. Even though I would have liked to sort of see more of that whole idea of like, yeah, draw out the battle of Sasaki a bit longer. I really like this character, and I would like to see him fight more than just this little bit of a time, because it does seem like he's got all of the death flags hanging around him. I don't think that Yuta's gone yet. I think that Yuta's going to get the upper hand at the end of the day, and then Yuta can be more of a bigger antagonist going forward in the series, being like, yeah, it looks like Ultimate X's Kyoshi is getting ready to survive some more, you know? But with that, we move on to Akane Banashi, chapter number 162. And this chapter, we get a cool color page. The first popularity poll results are finally in, as we see that Akane got first, Makeru got second, and Koguma got third. That's pretty neat. I definitely expected maybe like Harashi or some other characters, but I guess they also hadn't shown up in the manga before now in a good long while, so it also makes sense to why they weren't like a whole big deal and all of that various stuff, but even still, pretty cool to see that we get that, right? But the whole idea is Akane's walking down the hall just thinking like, man, I can't win the Zunin prize this way, like, what am I going to do? And she runs into both Hikaru and Karashi, and the three of them just have this big conversation of like, hey, you told us you were going to be big and powerful, what you showed us out there isn't going to let you win at all, pretty much, and like, hey, you gotta win without making the audience laugh. Karashi puts 2 and 2 together, pretty much, right? It's this whole idea that none of them wants this showdown to go this way, right? Or at least Hikaru doesn't. Karashi is still just happy that he's going to win either way in his mind, right? And he's like, hey, you want us to be opponents, like, hey, I'm gonna win anyway, so you didn't surpass my expectations. It sort of is what it is there, right? And the whole idea is Akane's not taking any of this. It's like, hey, tomorrow, I'm not changing my strategy. Instead, I'm going to show the two of you how I'll beat you both and demonstrate my true growth of strength, pretty much, right? And this whole idea of like, hey, everybody knows that Akane's better than this. And the end of the chapter is we just see Akane is standing in the ocean. We see that she's pretty much holding her shoes in her hands, her Rakugo fan in her other hand. She's just like standing there in the ocean, looking out towards the sea. And she's just muttering some words to herself as we see that Tyson comes over like, hey, Araki, like, I know you don't feel good, but like, we gotta get back to all of this various stuff. As we just see that he's like, Araki, like, what are you doing? Is we just see Akane is just muttering to herself out to the stars. And that's where we end this chapter of Akane Banashi with, man, I like this confrontation between Hikaru, Akane, and, Karashi. That's all the characters' names we get here. And just seeing that, and of course the idea of like, okay, how's Akane going to come back from this? I can't wait to see her win and also see all the performances that these other two are going to give. And it's just going to be a really fun time at the end of the day. Akane Banashi 162, very much enjoyed this chapter. It's going to be one of those things where it's good, but next week I feel like it's going to be even better. Blue Box chapter number 199 is up next. I can't believe next chapter is number 200. That's absolutely insane. But the beginning of this chapter is we just see that Hina is pretty much going out, stretching, doing all of her various stuff, and she's just looking at all of the people that she knows on the teams, right? She sees that I almost called him Yuta. Haruto, that's what his name is. Seeing him playing badminton, seeing Kyo play badminton, seeing Ayame doing badminton manager stuff, right? And she's doing all of her stretching. We see that Haruto walks over, and she's just like, hey, what are you doing? Like, you were just playing. As Haruto just is like, yeah, I won my game and all of that, but, I wanted to ask you a favor. And he just says, like, hey, whenever you go on your big trip to Kyoto, will you buy me a souvenir, pretty much? And she's like, hey, why would I do that, right? And the whole idea is like, hey, ask Taiki or one of these other people, right? And he pretty much says, like, hey, I can't. I want a good luck charm for my victory against Taiki Senpai in the national qualifiers. And he's like, hey, and that's why I'm asking you, Hina. Like, could you do me a solid, pretty much? Hey, I do really like that whole idea of, like, I know it's a bit of a weird thing for me to be asking, but I want to win at the end of the day, and this is a good way that I can see how to do it. I do actually really like this thing from, Who's His Face, Haruto. Yeah, it's pretty cool. But the whole idea is, the rest of the chapter is really focused on Ayame, as we see that she's sort of walking around, and she's pretty much, like, got all these various things to do. Like, we see one of the badminton club members slides on the ground and accidentally rips up his jeans, and like, oh no, that's not very good. So he asks Ayame if she can go and grab pretty much the sewing kit and help him out, and she's like, sure, I'll go do it. And she's pretty much running around and like, doing all this various stuff, and she ends up running into one of her previous boyfriends. He's an asshole. That's like the best way I can put it. He's not very nice this entire time. He's just being a little bit of a bad guy, you know? And pretty much, as she's pretty much running around, she falls onto the ground and drops the sewing kit on her way back. And we see that, of course, Takasago's friend ends up walking over, and he's like, oh, hey, you're Shota's friend, aren't you, pretty much? And she's like, hey, you being nice to me means a whole lot right now, like, thank you very much, right? And as she's getting ready to leave, this guy's just like, hey, I think I know how Shota's taking everything and trying to follow this, but he's actually trying really hard to be a good boyfriend to you, right? I can't help but get that you're surrounded by a bunch of guys and sort of your career and all of that, but, like, you should also try your best to show Shota some understanding, right? He's like, hey, I'm sorry for taking up all of your time, right? And we see this as a little bit of an influence on Ayame, as she sort of, like, runs over and just, like, throws the kit over at this badminton player, like, hey, you do it yourself, right? Now mend yourself together, right? And we see that she sort of walks away. We see that Kyo comes over and, like, ends up helping the guy out, like, all right, grab the needle first, you do it like that. And we see that, like, hey, look at this. Ayame's going around, toting around the water jug. Taiki comes over, like, hey, you want me to help you? And she's like, no, I need to do this all on my own, pretty much, right? She's like, hey, I have changed. I'm a better person than I once was, pretty much, right? And like, hey, I have to treasure the person I am. And that's where we end off that part of the chapter, right? The next thing we see is, of course, Shinatsu is in her brand new apartment and is going through and is cooking her dinner, right? And we see that she ends up making it, she takes a picture and sends it to Taiki, being like, hey, look at this, tonight's dinner, I made it very nicely, isn't that right, right? And pretty much as she's sitting down, Taiki's like, oh, hey, breakfast just finished, sorry I didn't respond earlier, but it looks delicious, please make it for me sometime. And we see that as all this is happening, Shinatsu's just watching the television, doing whatever she's doing, right? And we eventually see that somebody has gone over and pretty much ring her doorbell, right? Shinatsu walks over, and we just see a neighbor's like, oh, hey, sorry, I just moved in next door the other day, so I wanted to introduce myself to you, right? And we see this guy's pretty much, like, bought a little bit of a bento box over to be like, hey, please take this as, like, trying to meet everybody in the area, right? And, oh, would you look at that, right? But we sort of just see that it looks like Shinatsu never went back to her room or something like that. Like, it looks like the TV's still on after it becomes morning. What has happened around here? A little bit of an interesting thing, like, oh no, okay. But at this point, we now cut over to the final 2 pages of the spread where it's like, oh, hey, look at this. It's getting ready to be time that we're going to be heading out to Kyoto on our school trip, pretty much. And we even see that in the morning, Taiki gets a text from Shinatsu, and he's like, hey, she's like, hey, be safe and have fun, and pretty much, like, sends him one of those penguin things waving, and he's like, oh yeah, I can't wait for it, right? And it's like, hey, all of our characters are going on the school trip for the 200th chapter of Blue Box. Pretty cool. Yeah, it's a fine chapter. Not really too much else to say about it, though. I'll be interested to see where we go next time. The Elusive Samurai chapter number 207 is up next, and this chapter is just about Takauji pretty much coming through and beckoning the end of the world. As we just see, of course, he's in this meeting where pretty much he's getting ready to lose everything he has, and the whole idea is like, yeah, his brother Tadayoshi has been in control of this the entire time, like, he's the one who's sort of, like, controlling the narrative here, and by any means, he should be the one in control. But we see that Takauji comes through and is slowly changing history to make it to where he was the biggest guy of them all, pretty much, and that his presence is outshining everybody else, including his brothers, in this room pretty much, right? As we get this whole idea, as it's a really cool image that we get on page number 14, where we see Takauji almost holding the entire solar system in his grasp, pretty much moving all the planets and just making his godlike influence, making it reach its peak here in this moment, right? But the whole idea is Shizuku's like, hey, many, like, extraordinary natural phenomena have been occurring recently, like consecutive earthquakes, lightning strikes, and just, like, general destruction in the area. And also, like, the configuration of the planets and all of that's also, like, very inconspicuous and all of that. And we see that Tokiyuki's like, and you're just pretty much saying that that's, like, Takauji's fault, like, correct? And Shizuku's like, yes, I've sensed this change for 10 whole years. Divine power from all around the world is gathering around Takauji in Kyo. He uses objects of venerations like gods and Buddhas to funnel the power to himself, even from places overseas. Vast power controls heaven and earth, so he can even shape history to his own benefit, at the cost of the destruction of the world. Divine energy also resides within the human body. Thus, if a land loses all of its divine power, then the people lose fortune, health, resulting in the grand death. And the places farthest away from Takauji will end up dying first. As we see as Shizuku's explaining all of this, she comes over and pretty much gives Tokiyuki a kiss on the cheek, imbued with some of this, like, magical divine power, pretty much, and just explains, like, hey, the divine power that Takauji absorbed from overseas gave me this vision. As we see that she ends up giving this vision to Tokiyuki, as Tokiyuki just gets an image of like, hey, during the internal strife among all the various Ashikaga, a certain calamity was spreading across the Eurasian continent, had reached its peak. It is said that half of the population of Europe died during the outbreak of the Black Plague. Oh no, the Black Plague was Takauji's doing this entire time? That's crazy! With this whole idea of Shikuzu being like, hey, people everywhere will die except there only until one god remains, and that's Takauji, and all of his followers are left alive, worshipping pretty much at his feet, right? And if Takauji's life ends, the god inside of him will shift descendants and pretty much live forever in this way. And Tokiyuki just is like, hey, well, whatever malevolent deity resides within him, we must drive it out and defeat Takauji. Like, hey, all of us collectively, we are the child of a god ourselves, and we're not what we used to be. The final battle to fulfill our father's will is near, pretty much. The whole idea is like, yeah, all of the elusive warriors brought together under Yorishige are getting ready to go out into the world and save the day by getting rid of Takauji, finally. Pretty cool. Honestly, I do like how this chapter is just so random, spreading out of Japan finally, be like, oh yes, you know the Black Plague that also happened, and yeah, this chapter is set in 1351 pretty much? Yeah, the Black Plague's going on, it's pretty bad, it's all due to Takauji's fault. That's honestly just really funny, and one of the things I love about manga. It's just really fun, my historical story brought up the Black Plague. That's really funny, right? So the 207th chapter of The Elusive Samurai, I definitely did enjoy. And finally, that leaves us with one final chapter. Witch Watch number 205. This chapter is, of course, titled Glimpses of Bodyguards. And why do I mention that? Well, just because of the whole idea of what this entire chapter is about. So, pretty much hopping into this chapter, we see that Nico is walking home with her friends from school, Marin. And as we see that they're pretty much going around and walking, we see that Nico's pretty much explaining, like, oh yeah, at home, like, there's this whole plot of my pretty much death, pretty much, like, there's an evil witch after my life and all this various stuff. And we see that Marin isn't really believing her too much, but Nico just explains, like, yeah, pretty much I have all of these bodyguards with me whenever I'm outside. Like, here, Bon is, like, protecting me now. As we see that Bon is pretty much, like, hanging in Nico's pocketbook or whatever it is, or her bag or whatever you call it, right? But as you're walking around, it's this whole idea of where, like, oh yeah, I've got these 4 guys I live with and all that various stuff. And Marin just explains, like, oh man, you're super lucky. Like, so, like, you have your own reverse harem and all of that various stuff. Like, hey, I'm so jealous, right? And Nico pretty much explains, like, yeah, whenever I go out, like, they sort of, like, hang out around me, but they always, like, stay back a little bit, like actual bodyguards you see in movies and all of that. And, of course, we know that's not how the story of Witch Watch goes. Like, of course, they're normally just, like, out and about around, like, they're not trying to hide or anything. But Nico's just sort of building this whole idea up of like, hey, well, maybe we can go out shopping or something, but I actually don't know if you'll be able to see them, though. Like, they typically keep a low profile, staying out of my range of sight, and, like, maybe it'll glance at me from behind or something like that, but that's really all there is to it, right? And pretty much, we now see that Nico is sitting around the house with all of the other members of the Otogi household sitting around. And she just explains, like, yeah, and my friend Martin is pretty much convinced that that's how it actually goes around there, right? And of course, everybody's like, hey, like, what were you thinking, right? And the whole idea is eventually Nico's like, hey, but like, maybe you guys could actually do that, so I want all four of you to come out and pretty much help me do some shocking and act like those bodyguards here soon, right? And pretty much you're like all baiting around. It's like, no, we don't actually want to do that. Like, raising a teenager is hard. I love that Keigo brings up that point. As all of this time very much comes on, it's like, hey, I mean, bodyguards normally wear like that special outfit, so like they still stand out, but you can easily tell that they're bodyguards and all that stuff. And even so, it's very inconspicuous for like somebody to be that just following around random people. Like, people are just going to pretty much be paying attention, right? And Kanji's like, hey, just like, you're just being so annoying. Like, you don't need four of us on a plain old shopping trip, pretty much, right? But Nico's like, hey, no, like, that doesn't matter. Like, you know what? It won't be long to come back to my old self, so maybe we could do, like, a training mission or something like that. And Keigo brings up the whole idea of, like, hey, we've actually had some meetings that Bon's not been included in, but, like, the four of us, of actually, like, realizing what we're going to do whenever that time comes to pass, pretty much, right? And the whole idea is they're pretty much going all out around. Nico's like, well, damn. Going on a shopping trip with these guys isn't enough to make them serious. Like, in that case, here's what I'll do. She just says, like, okay, then, well, never mind, forget I asked, but I still wonder, which one of you would make the best bodyguard? She pretty much gets up, stretches, and starts to head to her room, pretty much, right? It's like, well, I mean, you guys all have your special abilities, but I'll honestly say with your personalities, you're all probably about equal overall. Like, but yeah, all of that doesn't really matter. Like, I just wonder who'd be the sharpest lookout, the quickest to act, pretty much, right? As we see that she just goes back to her room, like, I don't know, maybe Moy, actually think about it, no, Pecan, or I don't really know, and she just sort of walks back to her room and just is like, alright, good night then. And as this happens, we see that Nico dodges into a room, but then closes the door and puts her ear right next up to the door. As we just see her outside, all of the guys just bantering back and forth, like, alright, you know it's me, I'm the real one. Like, no, it's totally me. Like, in that case, it's actually me, then no, me. Like, I'm actually better, but no, I'm better. Like, no, you aren't better than any of us at all. Like, are you listening? Like, you didn't need to add the last part there. Like, you really want to test that theory, buddy? Like, okay, say what? Like, that doesn't. We're all on. We're doing this, right? And Nico's like, okay, then, well, it looks like they're going to go all out for my shopping trip. And even Bond's like, man, Nico, you're just like being pure evil here, right? Well, we now see that both Nico and Marin are going by the mall. And we see that they're going out and like, oh, look at this. Nico wants to get a brand new shopping bag today, right? And as they're walking around, we just see somebody who's staring out from the corner. We see it, obviously, it's very much Keigo. He's wearing like this big trench coat-like thing, holding a potted plant in his arm, has some glasses and a beanie on, and I did not recognize this reference, but very thankfully to somebody in the, in the Viz comments, they pointed out that this is from the movie The Professional. Never seen that movie, but okay, it's pretty cool that we see that there pretty much, and we see that this is how Keigo's dressed up here in a moment, and Nico's like, oh no. That was totally Keigo dressed like Leon. I guess that's a guy from the movie. That's sort of what I'm taking from this, right? But the whole idea is like, okay, he is definitely going really overboard. And we see that Keigo sort of over here, like, peeks out looking in the whole area. And Martin's like, oh, hey, is that like one of your bodyguards, Nico? Like, that's absolutely crazy. And Nico's like, what are you talking about? As we look over, and we see Kanchi. We see he's got his hair completely slicked back. He's wearing a suit jacket, of course, the white shirt and a tie. And we see that he's put like a lot of padding in his clothes to pretty much make himself all padded up. And we also see that he's got a walkie-talkie that he's talking into, holding people back as they're trying to shop in the mall pretty much, right? And Nico's like, okay, he looks the part, but he just stands out like a sore thumb, and he really doesn't need that walkie-talkie either, right? And we even see that he's like mumbling like, alright, roger that, Alpha 5 Charlie out, pretty much, right? Doing all of this various stuff, right? Like, he's trying so hard to sound all serious, but it just comes off like super cringe at the end of the day, and it's really funny seeing Kanchi this way, right? But as Marin and Nico start to sort of move on a little bit more, eventually Marin's like, hey, what about that over there? Like, why is there a massive crowd forming, right? as we see that there's a high school girl standing there. Of course, this is Miharu, who's sort of just, like, standing here, got an umbrella in their hand, pretty much, right? And we see a bunch of these boys are like, oh man, like, she's super cute and all of this various stuff, right? And Nico's like, okay, like, he's definitely trying to blend in with all this various stuff, but, like, he's so cute, he's, like, standing out instead, but, like, I mean, Miharu, like, how can you simply look like that? Like, we even see that Miharu is getting hit on and all of that various stuff, right? Until eventually, we see that somebody comes up behind Miharu to, like, help him out, right? And as we turn to page number 14, this was probably one of the best laughs that I've had reading manga in a very long time. As we see that Morihito appears, Terminator sunglasses on, just going, oh, hasta la vista, baby, and pushing away this guy, as we see that, yes, we have the Terminator Morihito also here, happy to save the day, right? And Nico's like, okay, what is all this? And Morihito looks over, peering from behind the corner, looking at Nico, right? And she's like, okay, look at that. These four make a crazy picture all together, and, like, yeah, I mean, you can tell that they're really trying hard to be someone, like, it's honestly just so funny, right? As eventually, all of this stuff is going on, and Nico's, like, running away from all of the bodyguards and all of that, right? And eventually, Martin's like, hey, Nico, like, there's actually a weirdo coming this time, right? She's like, okay, I don't have any other bodyguards, so who could it be, right? As we see, there's just some random drunk guy who's at this mall at the middle of the day, pretty much, right? And he's just coming over, and, like, he's just being a little bit annoying, right? But as all of this happens, we see this guy's getting close to both Nico and Marin. And of course, all of the bodyguards come in at the end of the day to protect the two of them, right? As we see that Miharu comes out, grabs her blade out of the umbrella, pointing it at this guy's throat. Morihito gets ready, Keigo turns into Wolf and, like, gets all of his stuff ready, and Kanshi's also there, 2 fingers up, ready to control the wind with his powers, right? And all of these people are like, oh no, what, like, this isn't good, right? And of course, the whole idea is, like, Miharu's getting ready to, like, threatening this guy pretty much, but he's like, but Morihito's like, hey, Miharu, that's enough. Like, I'm sorry, sir, but this is our job to protect these people. Like, we don't want to hurt you. If you could just, like, get out of the way and, like, it'd just be nice. Sorry for all the trouble, pretty much. And this guy just completely runs away, right? And pretty much the rest of these guys all start to move along, all the bodyguards, and Nico's like, hey, I mean, thank you. You guys were always said, like, you're training to keep me safe, and that was, like, absolutely amazing, right? And Morihito's like, hey, you don't need to be, like, so cautious and give up on having fun, Nico. Like, we're going to make sure that you stay safe till the end of the day, right? As we see that Marin is just like, oh, wow, like, that's so cool. Like, I'm just super impressed, right? As we see all of the other guys, like, Morihito puts the sunglasses on, is like, all right, I'll be back, and starts walking away. We see that Kanji leans back into the microphone and just is like, all right, 10-4 Bravo, we'll go Niner, just likes to, like, walk away with all of that various stuff, right? And, like, drop the act, we know who you are all to begin with, pretty much. And the in-joke is, of course, Miharu has to use the bathroom, and he looks like a girl, but he's running to the boys' bathroom, right? Really, really funny chapter of Witch Watch. I absolutely laughed at this chapter. It was just so funny going through all this stuff, and eventually flipping the pages, seeing Morito's whole thing of, like, hasta la vista, baby. It was absolutely so hilarious, and the cool action moment we got here, this was a brilliant 205th chapter of Witch Watch. And hey, with all that talking and rambling out of the way, it's finally time to go to the end part of this video where we sit down and we rank all of these chapters from what I thought was the best chapter of the week all the way to what I thought the worst chapter of the week was. And as I mentioned earlier, Witch Watch was never not going to be my favorite chapter that we got this week. I just thought it was so funny, and if I like a chapter that much, I just, like, simply have to pick it, you know? Each of which is up next. I really like the chapter that we got, and just seeing all this stuff, and the very end of it, where Gokuraku's just coming down, punching the Joyful Star of Magic. I just thought it was a really fun time, and rounding out the top 3, we're going to put Kill Blue, because I also just thought it was a really good chapter, right? Next up, we're going to put Embers, because also I just liked the moment of, yeah, I thought Nerima had a really cool showing. I thought, Haitani looked really cool. Just thought it was a good chapter. With that, let's go to the bottom of the list, where I think the worst chapter this week is going to be Hima 10. That I think it was terrible. No. But also, like, I think there were just better chapters to be had. We're probably going to put Star, Beethoven above it. No, we're actually going to put Star of Beethoven below it at the end of the day and put it on the bottom and Hima 10 right above it instead. I do like that a little bit better. Probably Sid Craft up next, and right above it we're going to put Order of the Flame. F-L-A-M-E. Yeah, look at that. If I could also spell the word V right instead of the, that would be pretty neat. Leaving us with Akane Banashi, Blue Box, Ultimate Access Kyoshi, Elusive Samurai, and Harukaze Mound. Definitely think we're going to be putting Harukaze Mound right above Order. It's definitely one of those things where I'm probably going to be enjoying it more as time goes on, but right now it's definitely like, yeah, it's just completely okay. I'll be interested to see where it goes from now, though. So Harukaze Mound is up next. After that, we're probably going to put, Ulti, or if I can spell, Ulti X-Row Kiyoshi on the position under Embers, and under that we're probably going to put Blue. No, we got to put the Elusive Samurai. That was just so funny of the whole moment of like, yes, the Black Plague was caused by Takeuchi, don't you know? It's one of those great manga things. Then we'll put Akane Banashi, and then we'll put Blue Box. And yeah, I do like that ranking, of course. Going back through it, we have Witch Watch at the top, Ichi the Witch, Kill Blue, Embers, Ultimate Access Kyoshi, the Elusive Samurai, Akane Banashi, Blue Box, Harukaze Mound, Order of the Flame, Sidcraft, Hematin, and Star of Beethoven to round out the general list. And my character of the week, it's really simple. It has to be Subaru Ichijo from, of course, Kill Blue. I loved how he got his character built up this week, the whole idea of like, yeah, he simply loves the feeling of when hard work pays off, and I thought that was just a really cool way to portray this character. And yeah, Subaru, you get my character of the week. And yeah, with all that out of the way, thank you guys for watching this video on issue number 29 of 2025 of Weekly Shonen Jump. Like I said, a good issue, definitely some really, really funny chapters and some really, really good ones with awesome action like Witch Watch and Ichi the Witch. And then we just had some that were like, okay, yeah, I enjoyed those, but definitely like not the best chapters that their series have ever had. And yeah, if you did like this video, I've talked about Weekly Shonen Jump plenty of other times on this channel. I've actually covered every single issue that's come out so far in the year of 2025, both in like the American year that I'm all used to, or the like general year that most of the world follows, and of course the year of publication being to like, yeah, 2025 actually started with issue number 6-7. I've talked about all of those in pretty much every single issue since like issue number 40 of Weekly Shonen Jump of 2024 or something like that. And also, a little bit of a fun note about this week, but this is issue number 29 I talked about this week, and the very first Weekly Shonen Jump video I made was on issue number 29 of 2023, so a little bit of a cool thing of, I've been talking about Shonen Jump for like 2 years. Granted, I've been talked about consistently for all those 2 years, but I've been talking about it for a little while, you know. But yeah, there's going to be a place to follow those videos, link down in the description box of this video, and also on the end card of this YouTube video. But also, this series isn't just a YouTube series. You can find it on all of the podcasting platforms like Apple Podcasts and Spotify, Podbean, and some of those other ones. If it's on a podcasting platform that you want to listen to it on and it's not on there, let me know and I'll try my best to move it in that general direction. But yeah, with all out of the way, just thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys next time for Weekly Shonen Jump issue number 30 of 2025. I'll catch you guys then. This will be Glowplasma 231, signing out. Yeah, Witch Watch was very good this week. Great chapter, you know? Yeah, I'll catch you guys next time.